in-depth, investigative. This is KXAN News Today.
Shakeups at the Texas Lottery Commission. Commissioner with the TLC resigning on Friday, and it comes as the commission is expected to provide some testimony later this morning to a Texas House committee. Good morning, I'm Tom Miller. Spokesperson for the TLC confirming Clark Smith resigned, though did not say why. We reach out to Smith, have not heard back. This resignation coming as the agency faces a sunset review. There's also growing pressure from state lawmakers to ban lottery couriers from doing business in the state. Last week, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick told KXAN that the lottery will end if mobile applications are not banned. Also happening later today, the Senate State Affairs Committee discussing creating criminal offenses for anyone facilitating or paying the lottery through the internet or a mobile phone. For an in-depth look at this story, head to KXAN.com.
First warning weather with meteorologist Kristen Curry.
Well, good Monday morning. Let's start with a live look outside. This is our Allied Medical Emergency Room camera there in Bastrop. And as you can tell, we've got some fog issues this morning. The temperatures are cool in the 30s and 40s. Most of us in the 40s, just a few spots in the hill country in those upper 30s. So despite the chill, I'm most concerned about the fog slowing our morning drive. Along and east of I-35 is where we're seeing some of the densest fog. Visibility down to just a few feet in Rockdale, less than half a mile there in Cameron, down to a mile in Bastrop. Caldwell County, less than a half a mile. Austin Metro between about 3 to 4 miles. So it's definitely enough to notice. We've got a dense fog advisory in place for the I-35 corridor counties and eastern communities until 9 a.m. today. But that being said, once we get past this morning fog, the afternoon, incredible. We're talking mid-70s and sunshine, and this looks to continue for most of the week. I'm going to stretch out that brand new 7-day forecast for you coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Kristen. Hays County health leaders are on alert this morning. It's after a person infected with measles spent most of the day in San Marcos earlier this month. County Health Department saying this person was visiting Texas State University on Valentine's Day from Gainesville, and that's where a measles outbreak is happening right now. KXAN's Sam Stark breaks down what the county is doing to avoid an outbreak here.
Here is a map of locations a person infected with measles went on February 14th. That person touring Texas State University for several hours before dining at Twin Peaks restaurant that night, potentially exposing the virus to dozens of people.
So at this moment, we're asking members of the public who are exposed to the individual just to isolate only if they haven't received a dose of the MMR vaccine and or haven't received measles in the past.
The person was visiting from Gaines County, the epicenter of an outbreak that has infected around 90 people with measles across 7 counties. Most of those people unvaccinated children. The Texas Department of State Health Services said 16 of the infected individuals have been hospitalized.
Right now, obviously, we want to take it seriously. We've seen the Gaines County, measles outbreak really explode.
Measles is one of the world's most contagious diseases. It can spread through a cough or a sneeze, through air and surfaces the infected person has come into contact with. It can cause high fever, cough, runny nose, and a rash all over the body.
9 out of 10 unvaccinated people exposed to measles will develop measles, but the MMR vaccine is very effective.
2 doses of the vaccine is known to be 97% effective at preventing measles. The World Health Organization reported the vaccine has helped prevent 60 million measles-related deaths from 2000 to 2023. The Hays County Health Department said this person was not in San Marcos when symptoms were most contagious, thus hoping transmission will be low.
We're taking the possible exposure very seriously because we've seen how fast it's been spreading in Gaines County.
In Hays County, Sam Stark, KXAN News.
County Health Department says it's going to be providing frequent updates on its website on the situation. Let's talk about layoffs at the Internal Revenue Service impacting Austin, the city home to one of just a few IRS centers. The union president talked with KXAN's Sarah Alshay about the developing situation for workers there.
How am I going to survive? I'm a single mom.
Stories of people laid off.
I left a job of 13 years to come here, and what do I get? I could not sleep last night.
Union President for National Treasury Employees in Austin, Eddie Walker, says these are quotes he's heard from local IRS workers let go this week.
Tuesday, one group of people, probationary employees, were told they were fired. And then on Wednesday, they got to another group of people and told them the same thing.
So far, the layoffs affect those with roughly 1 year or less at the agency and largely include workers in compliance departments. Compliance work includes ensuring taxpayers abide by the tax code, file their returns, and pay their taxes.
Most of the time, it's a question of just settling what could be an issue. You may owe less than you think you owe, or you might get put on some kind of payment plan that kind of makes more sense out of your life and takes a lot of the pressure off you. So that's the other side of the coin when you talk about compliance employees.
These layoffs are part of a wider initiative of the Trump administration to shrink the size of the federal workforce through the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, and Elon Musk.
Elon's doing a really good job.
There should be no secret about the fact that this administration is committed to cutting waste, fraud, and abuse.
Now here in Austin, Walker says hundreds of former IRS workers will flood the job market as they try to land back on their feet.
These, first of all, are people who can get trained in programs that are difficult. Somebody who can think, who can focus.
Sarah Alsha, KXAN News.
Walker did not have an exact number of how many people the government laid off in Central Texas, but believes it is in the hundreds. He expects that number will continue to increase, possibly into the thousands, as managers prepare for more layoffs. Good morning. This is a live look outside. It is foggy in Bastrop County, and Kristen says a lot of our eastern counties are dealing with this as well. Something to keep an eye on as we kick off this Monday morning here on KXAN News Today. Students and staff at Bowie High School here in Austin, they were feeling the cold for a few days last week, more so than most. South Austin campus has a problem with its heating system. The district confirming its operations team is addressing the problem. District says the extreme cold pushed the system to full capacity. But a parent who we talked with tells us the school's been that way since she was a student there in the 90s. And the students know they need to show up bundled up.
She said the same. People just need to layer up. Everything's going to be okay.
Austin ISD said some older buildings might not have as much insulation as some others, meaning they have trouble keeping temperatures consistent in the extreme weather. Good morning. This is a live look outside from our Circuit of the Americas camera, where races are happening soon with NASCAR. Chrissy, you don't necessarily see it on that camera, but we're dealing with a lot of fog out there, sort of east of Austin.
Yeah.
But also, I was driving in on I-35, and you see those patches of fog.
For sure. Underneath the lights, it looks a little blurry. Fog really the issue this morning. Let's start with a look at radar, because at this point, we're not seeing anything, and we won't see anything today. Dry skies from start to finish. As a reminder, sometimes, especially in the early morning when we don't have the help of the sun, satellites have a harder time seeing clouds so low to the ground. So although it looks clear, we do have mainly clear skies up top. That fog, though, is something to plan for this morning. Currently sitting at 41 degrees in Austin with calm winds. Those calm winds helping this fog to develop. You're noticing, like Tom mentioned, eastern counties particularly looking at some pretty dense fog conditions with visibility down to feet in Milam County. Less than a mile out towards Luling this morning, less than half mile in Giddings, LaGrange, Flatonia, and then moving closer to I-35, not quite as dense, but still impactful with visibility is reading between about 1 to 3 miles. Once that fog lifts, and it will later this morning, we've got plenty of sunshine expected, and that's going to help our temperatures skyrocket. We've got highs in the 70s today, some southerly winds helping our warm up. I mean, it just looks and feels incredible later today. You're noticing the difference, though, with the 80s out west in these lower 70s in the east. That's because we're going to hang on to the cloud cover, I should say, a little bit longer in our eastern counties. So with the earlier arrival of sunshine, we do anticipate warmer temperatures out in our hill country. So here's how it plays out with our high resolution models. Picking up on some of that fog this morning. Sunshine for the later part of today. Overnight, we're doing the same thing. Clouds come back, low clouds at that. Likely to see some fog, mainly in our eastern counties tomorrow morning. And then we've got sunshine on the way for your Tuesday, y'all. It's a really quiet week. The one exception to that will be a cold front, but it's really not going to do a whole lot of damage to our temperatures. And I really think this week is going to feel fantastic. This is that springtime weather a lot of us have been looking for. We've got 70s expected leading up to that cold front and even behind it. Could we maybe squeeze out an isolated shower or two late Wednesday night into Thursday morning? It's possible, but it doesn't really look that impressive. I mean, this front coming off the Pacific, I think, is going to have a 10% chance of rain to it. But even that doesn't necessarily mean widespread rain, no heavy rain at that. It's just something to mention with that cold front passing probably early Thursday morning. That being said, 7-day forecast in the mid 70s today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Cold front comes through, a little bit cooler Thursday. We'll take those little mid 70s into the weekend. Potentially some rain chances Sunday too. Right now I'm going to hold those at 30%. Nowhere near a freeze here over the next 6 to 7 nights. We're going to stay in those 40s and 50s. And even next week with the precipitation pattern trending normal to drier than normal. And then with the temperatures warmer than normal conditions expected as we get into the first week of March.
We're not going to do the wind thing. Wind. Big ugly windmills, they ruin your neighborhood, they ruin you. If you have a house that's near a windmill, guess what? Your house is worth less than half.
As the political winds in Washington shift, cities like Austin are bracing for impact. Collaborating with our media partners at The Hill in a project supported by the Pulitzer Center, KXAN investigator Matt Grant is examining this renewed pushback and what it could mean for renewable regulation in Texas.
Yes, the country is at a crossroads when it comes to energy policy. With Texas relying heavily on wind and solar, there's now new concern from some about the way forward.
In a state where everything's bigger.
Solar is magic, right?
Texas has long touted its #1 status as a renewable energy leader.
We're by a substantial margin the largest wind energy producing state in the country.
So these solar panels, if the sun is shining, even on a day like today, they're generating electricity.
Texas takes an all-the-above approach to energy policy, not shared by the White House these days.
We will drill, baby, drill.
On his first day back in office for a second term, President Trump signed an executive order pausing new wind projects on federal land and water over concerns it degrades natural landscapes and fails to serve energy consumers. This comes as Texas, the only state in the continental U.S. with its own power grid, ERCOT, not reliant on the rest of the country, is increasingly using renewables. According to ERCOT data, on a mid-February afternoon, wind and solar accounted for half of all of Texas's energy supply. In Austin, it's around the same at 49%, harnessed by nearly 20 locations from the Panhandle to West Texas to the Gulf Coast. We headed south to see for ourselves. At over 15,000, Texas has more wind turbines than any other state. This one behind me near Corpus Christi on your way to the coast helps power Austin 3 hours away. An hour north in conservative B County, we met Roy Velasquez. So you really can see them pretty clearly.
Yes, sir, there's a bunch of them.
His backyard overlooks a sprawling wind farm, but it's not the view that bothers him. And what do you think staring out at them? Does it bother you?
They don't bother me, but they're not helping me on anything.
So if there's a benefit, you just personally haven't seen it?
Yes, sir.
Now, how many homes can a project like this power?
This one is about 140,000 homes.
Across the way, Jeff Clark says overall, customers are benefiting from wind turbines like these through lower electric bills. This solar and wind farm feeds power into the Texas grid.
Texas is blessed with oil, gas, sun, wind, really all of the above, as we say. And we believe in building all of them. Frankly, that's the most conservative thing you can do, is produce your own energy.
Clark is president of the Advanced Power Alliance, a trade association based in Austin that promotes development and investment in renewable energy.
Not everyone has oil and gas under their feet, but everyone has wind and sun over their heads.
Like most solar and wind farms in Texas, the private land where this one's located is leased and unaffected by the president's executive order.
I'm concerned about the immediate future.
Still, in this political climate, Clark worries about the potential for a scale back of renewables and what that would mean for Texas and America's ability to remain competitive globally.
President Trump has talked about dead birds, about property values going down. How is your industry going to handle that moving forward?
I would extend an invitation to anybody in the administration to come out and visit this project with us if they would like. I think a lot of the rhetoric attacking clean energy is because it works so well. People see it as a threat. They see it as competition. The Americans need abundant, affordable energy.
Clark is no stranger to the state capitol and plans to testify again this session. We found more than a dozen bills that could affect renewable energy regulation, taxation, and expansion.
We have to take a look at renewables.
Among them, Senate Bill 819, filed by Republican Senator Lois Kolkhorst and already referred to the Chamber's Business and Commerce Committee. If passed, her measure would increase regulation and permitting rules for wind and solar.
Texas leads the country in renewable energy. Why add red tape to make it harder for wind and solar industries to operate?
Okay, so tap the brakes there. We're number one in solar and we're number one in wind. And we know that this is not a reliable resource. And it's also causing a strain on some of our resources. You cannot put solar panels over thousands of acres and not think that there is not a natural resource issue out there. It's not red tape. It is a protection for landowners. It is the right thing to do for Texas.
Along with a permit from the Public Utilities Commission, Kolkhorst wants to require future projects to have public input and environmental and wildlife impact reviews.
I support President Trump in saying, let's put a pause on this. Let's make sure that we know where it's going. And I certainly don't want to, as a coastal lawmaker, see them out in our bays and estuaries of these big windmills.
Her bill could require those windmills be at least 3,000 feet from any property line, compared to less than 500 for oil well drilling. State lawmakers have focused a lot of attention on energy in recent years. In 2021, freezing temps caused rolling blackouts, with more than 4.5 million homes losing power. Some experts worry a renewable scale back could further strain Texas's grid, which already faces record demand.
That's effectively almost doubling the peak demand of the ERCOT grid in about 6 years. So it's a really significant impact.
How best to address it will be a fight continuing to fuel debate.
We're number one in wind, number one in solar. I'm not sure that's something to brag about.
Here in the capital, Austin Energy is the city's electric provider, which you mentioned gets half of its supply from wind and solar. What does it have to say?
Well, that it has a long history of leading Texas in renewable energy investments, telling us in a statement, with the projected growth in local and statewide energy demand over the next decade, renewables will continue to be essential in meeting the energy needs of our community and maintaining a reliable energy grid.
And that's an important point, not just for Austin, but as you said, the entire state.
Yes, the director of the Energy Institute at UT Austin says solar and wind are reliable and necessary to keep the Texas grid running.
Is wind energy needed to keep the grid stable?
Yeah, absolutely. Over 25% of the power capacity is wind right now. You can't just take away a fourth of the grid.
And Josh, of course, will continue to track Senator Kolkhorst's bill along with any other White House actions that could impact Texas.
Yes, and you can also check out our interactive map that shows a breakdown of how Austin gets its energy, including the amount from wind and solar. It's online in this story in the investigative section of KXAN.com right now.
Coming up, how you can make your voice heard when it comes to how the city of Austin is spending your tax dollars. If you're listening on the KXAN Today podcast, thanks for being with us. Hope you'll join us on air for that story. And all our stories are on our website, KXAN.com.